Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and today's topic is on reconnecting with after estrangement. And for the past several weeks, we have been looking at some of the topics that are shared with the federal prisoners. And one of the most difficult is after you are released to go home, knowing that there may be some things that still need to be settled. Anyway, we're going to look at, let me put the screen here so we can share and be a part of, and go to the beginning. Reconnecting after estrangement. You notice here that I put as the subheader, the subtopic, that we are taking a do-over. But I began to think about that taking sometimes can be real off-putting, that we can take something, but if we receive something, it has a more gentle thought to it. And so I want to look at receiving a do-over, because we all make mistakes in life and we all want to not repeat those mistakes. And so it's looking at the possibilities of them and how to receive the ability to do a do-over. And so here is on the left is a quote that I ran across several years ago. I think I got it off of a Facebook send, but it did not say who was the author of this. Said, I want to share it. And I think it's really helped me a lot, and I want to share it with you. Maybe the journey of life, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. And of course, Carl Jung looked at it as our shadow side, that there are things that we have that they're not necessarily evil, they're just not the best that we can be. And but they can become evil if it's things that we are not that proud of. So in looking back, that I changed our subtopic from taking a do-over to receiving a do-over. It's because I want us to look for a minute at the power that words have. And every word that we use has power, not only with the attitude and with everything behind it and the way we use it and abuse it and use it. So anyway, it's receiving the gift of a do-over, because receiving means that we are ready to take in, to allow someone to give something to us without kind of a pushback. And whether these gifts, it is a gift, and whether that gift is something that is given to us or something that we think, to realize that that word still has power, whether you're actually speaking it or just mulling it over or just thinking about it. And that we are a do-over, we are reconnecting, realigning with life in general, and that re is a prefix, and you'll see it all under the R's in the dictionary. There's all kinds of things that we can add the RE to it, and it's a prefix. It's the beginning of it. And what it literally means is again and again. And I like to think of it as in remembering. In remembering, not only remembering the pleasant times and the not so good times, but remembering as in looking at whether it is workers or family or community, looking at all the different people, and we are coming together as members of each other's family, as each other's working together and reconnecting and realigning. And there's things we may need to do over and over again. And then that in using these words and in reconnecting and in thinking or speaking, we want to allow the things to be inspiration that comes from internal. Now we have a brain No information can get into our brain except through our senses. And our senses, they're always on. And there are times that we can hear things, feel things, touch things, see things that maybe we didn't really set out to, but it's still there. And so it comes into our brain. But as we're always getting signals from our heart too. And sometimes if we work with things just from a brain aspect, we haven't put the humanity to it that comes from our heart. So we can be internally inspired using both our brain and our heart. And knowing, as Sir Benedict said many, many moons ago, that always we begin again. Always we re-up. Always we can look and say, wait a minute, I need to have a time out here. Let me step back. Let me say something, do something in a different way. And so part of that is learning to align to truth. And aligning, I have a quote here that Shakespeare had Hamlet to say in one of his dramas. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it follows as surely as the night follows day, thou canst not be false with any other man. And once we take these words inside, so have you always said, well, I can't do that, or I can't do something? And my response is to, well, what if you could? Maybe you could do something that you're thinking is not in your bailiwick. Maybe you can do something. And what if you could? And as we are true to ourselves, being who we truly are, but being our best self, not one that's all rugged and that's more pushing back than receiving. And then we cannot be false with anyone else, because our brain thinking, but equally important, our wisdom heart will not allow us to be false with any other person and be true to ourselves. And so it's realizing, here's just a couple of little thoughts, that as we are on the pathway of life and reconnecting with, there's always room for improvement. We can always learn and do a little bit better the next time. That truth, to thine own self be true. And so as we are true to ourselves and as we align with truth, we recognize both our strengths and our weaknesses. And that sometimes we have a strength that we have used too forcefully that becomes a weakness. And as we can look at the weakness we have, that like maybe someone was talking with the other day, that anyway, we'll say something kind to someone, as in, it's okay, don't let that bother you. And others could see it as a weakness, but sometimes as we can see, that weakness is really a strength as we begin to use it in the true nature. It is also being authentically who you are is imperative, because it gives us that, not only a feel-good feeling, but it also gives us self-confidence. And I'm not talking an overinflated ego. I'm talking a good self-confidence that knows that you are a person of infinite worth and value, whether you are stumbling and falling or whether you are doing something fantastic. And then looking that sometimes in realigning, sometimes in reconnecting, that it is better to be removed from the hearth than from the heart. Meaning that sometimes others can just irritate us so much that we need a little space, or we can irritate others so much that we need a little space as well as they need a little space. And so maybe it's not so much living together or being together so continuously, that as we give a little space to one another, we still have enough love there to keep them in our heart and in our life, and to have the best interest for everyone. So, Sitting at the Feet of My Own Life is a song that was written by Jackie Darko, and I don't remember the young man that sings it, but it's just beautiful. And I wanted to share with you just a portion of the song. So it starts off with, I took a piece of fruit and it tasted so good, I thought I had no choice to eat it. Have you ever eaten anything? Ooh, that has a moreish taste to it. And you do it again and again and again. Then it says, I made a mistake and it felt so bad, I thought I was compelled to repeat it. That we think, well, maybe that's who I am. I mean, I did that, and that is who I am, and I've got to do it again and again. Or we get angry, and where did that come from? With getting angry again and again. And we think these things are just a part of us, and we can't be our own true self. But the song goes on and it talks about it's time to sit at the feet of our own life, or to self-evaluate, to get honest with ourselves, to look at what I am doing, what I'm not doing, what I have the ability to do that I'm not. And then the chorus to it, because we've been here before, and we know we've been here before, but we never learned our lesson. And we'll come here again till we finally find the blessing. And in one of the talks that we looked about before, we looked at blessing is comprised of 3 elements. Everything we go through, everything has a blessing. Everything has beauty to it, but everything also is a burden. And sometimes we see life as such a burden that we fail to see the blessing of it. So as we can learn to sit at the feet of our own life and learn from the greatest teacher of all. And the writer of this song capitalized teacher. Well, you know what? Life is teaching us something. It's giving us lessons, whether we're learning or not. And life, sitting at the feet of our own life, and let what we have done and what we are doing teach us as to whether it's something we want to keep on doing, or maybe it's time to say, this I will and this I want. And so as we're looking at the feet of our own life, as we begin to look at, are we using deadly habits or are we using caring habits? And this is not only on interacting with others, but it always starts with us. Because the bottom line is the only person you can control is you, but all too often we do not control ourselves, or we control ourselves in a negative way. And so the more we use our thoughts or words, whether they're verbal or thinking, to criticize or blame or complain or nag or threaten or punish or to bribe or to take, the more we are pushing people away and the more we're also harming ourselves. That the more we can learn to incorporate and use caring habits of supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, and negotiating differences, the more we can begin to use our wisdom heart and internally be true to ourselves. And then we cannot be false with anyone else. And we cannot, because we're choosing of our own free will, not to use those external control thoughts that are destructive. So to look back at the simplicity of Dr. William Glasser's choice theory, just the basic concepts of it, is that the only person whose behavior we can control is our own. That all we can ever give another person is information. And the flip side of that is all we can ever receive from another person is information. And looking at all long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. And those psychological problems include confusion, and they include the deadly habits. It includes an unhealthy mental health. And they are relationship problems because it is so important that we relate to others. No man is an island. We need people. And the problem relationship is always a part of our present life. Even if the person is divorced or deceased or on the other side of the world, they're still a part of our present life because we drag them with us in our mind and in our heart. And sometimes we see something that they were like in someone else, and well, you're always like so-and-so. And the past does affect where we are today. It sure does. But it does not determine the life that we live. It does not determine who we will continue to be and who we will be tomorrow. We satisfy our needs by satisfying the pictures that we have in our quality world, because we are very selective individuals. And from the day we're born until today, well, actually until the day we die, we will be looking about us and we will be seeing things and determining, I want that. I want to be like that. I want to do that. I want to have that. And so Dr. Glasser called it keeping it in our quality world pictures. And then we try our best to develop it, to bring it into actuality. And we do it through our behavior, and all we can do is behave. We are always behaving, either goodly or not so goodly. And then to look at all our behavior is total behavior. And you know, we've looked at the car many, many times, how that, I don't have it right here with me now, but we do look at the car and how our behavior is equated to those 5 wheels, the 4 that's on the floor and the 1 that we are there turning. And the 5 on the floor is the thoughts we think, the actions we take, the emotional feelings we feel, and the physiology as to whether we're tired or sad or frustrated or our heart's beating or profusely. And they all work in tandem. They're all working at the same time, but they're not all working as effectively, because sometimes if we spin on those back wheels, we get stuck in a rut. And then that all behavior is total, and we choose it. We choose the thoughts that we choose to have when we are acting and thinking. And all behavior is designated by verbs, meaning that verbs are those action words that usher you gently into the now that always is. And so in looking at expectations of going back home and reconnecting with your family, or reconnecting with work, or reconnecting with actually getting a, re-upping on your education, reconnecting with authority, reconnecting with your future. Are your attitudes, are your expectations, are they welcoming? Are you using the connecting habits of thinking and doing, or the disconnecting habits of thinking and doing? Are you expecting that people will shun you, or that you will shun them? Are you going, so-so? What about healthy relationships? What words can you use to gently usher you into the now that always is? Are you going to be supportive? Are you going to be honest? Are you going to be reliable? Are you going to be caring? And then are you going to receive the support that others will give you? Remember last week, our quote from Brene, that her family wasn't in the stands booing at her. They were right there in the arena with her. And are you going to see your family as that way? And then the social pressures that are always here, whether it is, there's always some kind of a social pressure. What is your thinking going to be? What is your acting going to be? What is your doing going to be? And how are you going to feel about that? And then, set it here again, if necessary, give some space, remove from the hearth, but not from the heart. Maybe you need to get out of the house for a little while, or even on a more permanent basis, having your own place as opposed to living at home, so that you have but that you're still a part of the family, still a part of the heart. So, salve. This can help us to reconnect. Sometimes you need a little oil on something to make it, taking rings off. Sometimes you need to put some lotion there so that it'll be a little bit easier to disengage, or a little bit easier. It's kind of a healing ointment. And this thought was from Martha Beck, who is a life coach, and it also was in an article that she wrote for the Oprah magazine in April of 2013. And she has her little salve, and the salve means self-acceptance, self-love, self-value, and self-esteem. Applying salve is way less bothersome than killing yourself or harming someone else. You're the one person whose company you'll never lose. Using salve means there will always be someone in the corner who accepts you, even on your most sleep-deprived days. Reject yourself and you're permanently embedded with an emotional abuser. And I'd like you to think about that. Come to your own conclusion on that. And how are you willing to employ and use salve for yourself and for those that you are reconnecting with? And then it's realizing the gift of you. Not only are you receiving the gift of realignment and reconnecting, but realize that you are a gift to this world, that you are a person. There's no one like you. You have infinite worth and value. You have measureless value. You are an original art with a designer label. You are completely unique. We all have fingerprints that either exonerate us or condemn us. And we are totally lovable. We are blessed beyond measure. Sometimes it's kind of hard to realize that we really are blessed beyond measure. I read a story recently of a young lady that was just real frustrated and things were pouring down on her. And she was kind of griping, and her dad said, "Hey, let's go outside. Let's go outside. Let's take a rest for a minute and kind of, reconnect with yourself." So they went outside and sat down. And it was early evening, just the sun was setting, and it was just beginning to get dark, and the birds were singing and going out and looking at. Dad made just a few comments. He said, "Oh, wow, look at that sunset. Isn't it beautiful?" And talked about the bird, what kind of a song it was singing, and mentioned the beauty of the trees and the flowers. And then they went inside. And the daughter didn't really say anything, maybe an to some of Dad's comments. But as she sat back down, going back to her task that was before her, she began to realize, whoa, that really was a blessing. And to look at nature and to look at the sunset and to hear the bird, that was a blessing. And so the gift of you, but there's a rub to it. Because not only are you all of these things, but guess what? Others are too. And sometimes that can kind of give us a rub. But as we approach everything with an open heart, an open mind, and enough space, we can handle it. So, reconnecting after estrangement, receiving a do-over, receive it with grace. Think you can do it? I think you can. Go in peace. Thank you for being here. And many blessings.